Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen. It's Pastor the DJ, and here's another episode of Zooming into Radio. Before I forget, don't forget to like as well as subscribe to my page. Now, today, another week, another guest, and right in front of me, I've got a radio legend, if I can call him that, an icon, someone we've listened to on the radio for almost 32 years. We're going to get into that sometime later on. But ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Ernest Pillay. Ernest, welcome to Zooming into Radio with Pastor.
Pastor, it's a pleasure, man, and good to be here. I'm all yours.
Yeah, I've been running after you for quite some time now, but yeah, I'm happy and I'm blessed to have you here.
No, wonderful. I'm looking forward to our chat.
Yeah. How do you introduce yourself nowadays? Do you say Ernest Pillay, radio presenter, and it ends there? I mean, you've done so much for radio in South Africa. How do you introduce yourself?
A simple answer, the same way I have been over the 30 plus years.
Yeah.
It's Ernest Pillay, and if you insist, the broadcaster.
Okay. And it ends there.
Yeah,
Nothing more.
and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less.
Good. Now, earlier I was speaking to my wife about the episode, and with the nerves that were building in my stomach. And when I mentioned the name Ernest Pillay, and she said, "Is he Indian?" And I guess that's a question that you've been on the receiving end of for the rest of your life. Let's start there. What's the background behind that story?
You know, often when people ask that question, they almost prepare themselves for this big bombshell, and I burst their bubble because it's a very short story that many people can probably relate to. Those particularly who come from mixed family backgrounds. Yeah. Long and short of it, my father is of Swazi descent. My mother is of Hindi, as in Indian.
Okay.
They didn't get married, and they separated when my sister and I were about 5, 6, thereabout. So mom took custody, mom being of Indian descent and her surname being Pillay. That's why I'm Pillay. Some people think I'm gonna have some dramatic story that we kidnapped an Indian some years ago and the rest of it. But that's the long and short of it.
I guess it's because you don't look the part.
Yeah, if you look closer, I guess in my earlier years there was some resemblance. But of course, I think my father's genes were stronger. But that's my mother's surname. Yes.
Yeah, but obviously, and I'm reminded of Trevor Noah's book Born a Crime. And in no way am I trying to reveal how old you are, but obviously you were born at a time when apartheid was at its prime. Definitely you must have had challenges socially as well as with the law. I'm sure there were challenges, even not only things that you experienced yourself, but your parents as well.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I wrote an article some years ago. It was around Heritage Month, which is September, where most folks, all of us, reflect on our heritage and where we come from. And I mentioned there that my coming face to face with apartheid, as many folks can recall, those who lived around those years, 70s and 80s, mine was experienced really around my community. Clearly, there was the obvious apartheid regime that you couldn't go to certain places, etc. But I would come face to face with the daily experiences, horrendous experiences of apartheid within the colored/Indian community where I grew up. I wasn't Indian enough or colored enough, as you can tell. And when I crossed the Rubicon, so to speak, to my father's side, I was a shade too light for their liking. So I had it coming both ways, you know what I mean? I wasn't dark enough on this side. On this side, I wasn't light enough to be accepted by the colored/Indian community. So indeed, it wasn't easy having this surname, but not quite looking the part on either side of my parents.
Personal lessons learned from that experience?
It made me come to terms at a very early age of my origins and who I am, regardless of the surname and what I'm called on the IDs. I mean, we had ID books back then, and obviously, according to custody, I identified as colored/Indian or other. it made me come to terms with that those labels mean nothing unless you search and find within your soul, and of course follow your roots and understand where you come from, and along those lines also accepting that those things don't matter. We're all human beings. It made me come to terms with that. Can you imagine at that early age, I had to go into that deep search of understanding that humans are humans, regardless of race, color, or whatever their surnames are. But it wasn't easy. But if I get to the good part, it was as if I was being prepared for the South Africa we live in today. Does it matter if you are Williams?
Yeah.
Pastor Williams and then Utetis Xhosa? Does it matter really? It doesn't.
Yeah. Speaking about languages, by the way, understand that you speak 8 languages. How did you acquire that skill?
That is precisely the hardships. You know, the hard times of straddling both my dad's side, which would cover the entire Nguni cultures, whether sikhuluma isiNdebele, sikhuluma isiSwati, siyathetha, sikhuluma isiZulu, and as I straddled that life at an early stage, I also was exposed, and I would encounter far-flung family, relatives, and friends that spoke all of the official South African languages, and I think those hardships kind of exposed me to all the cultural backgrounds, including language fluency. I mean, I don't just tata my chance, mangikhuluma isiZulu, kanthetha ndiyathetha, and akikuwa kuyavua Sotho, you know what I mean? So it wasn't by chance. But as I said, in a strange way, it empowered me and prepared me for the South Africa today. I go to the Zulu folks, my listeners think I'm Zulu, because when I'm with them, siyakhuluma, and there's no two ways about it. That's tata my chance. When I'm in Polokwane or wherever, I speak the language, you know, and it really helped me in that regard. That's how the grasp of almost all languages came about.
Now, do your children find themselves reliving some of the experiences that you went through?
Sadly so.
Simply because of the surname?
Absolutely. They get asked all the time. They get asked all the time. Daddy, as you know, again, September comes around, and every child has a little exercise of having to write a story or some poem or whatever about their folks and their background, and they'll always come around. They're getting a hang of it, but can you imagine when they were much younger? Or my youngest is still grappling with the understanding. He gets it, but because, you know, society has no mercy, they will just be blunt and ask, why are you Pillay, but you don't look like it? And, you know, he's still young, but he's got a good handle of it. And I tell them what I've learned over the years. The real story is that of my mother being of Indian descent, and your grandfather is of Swazi descent. But at the end of the day, you are who you are, any one of their names. So you tell them your name, and that's who you are.
Not too many people know very much about your personal life. Are you a private person?
Very much so. And it's not by design, it's just the way I am, you know. Funny enough, I only joined or signed up on Instagram purely when I did my last TV show, or let me say most recent TV show on SABC3, The Good Life. And then the producers and you know, all the young guys, no, you've got to be on Instagram. You have to be. That's the only time. It's as recent as 2017 or so, thereabout, when I activated an Instagram account. Twitter round about the same thing. I mean, I only signed up on Twitter was it 2013 or thereabout, when my producers insisted as well, when I was doing the drive time experience on Radio 2000. No, you got to be on Twitter, and Facebook followed. So I would not have been on those platforms because I don't see why I should tell someone what I had for breakfast. But I do it now because of what I do, you know.
The job demands you to do it, so you've got no choice.
The job demands, yes. So that probably signals how private I am. But it's not private as if, you know, I've got this golden thing to hide. It's just the way I am.
30 plus years on radio, 25 radio stations. Do you even remember half of those stations?
I do, because I hold them dear to my career. Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Can you
So,
please?
you want them?
Yeah,
you want me to mention them? Yes.
Please.
I mean, I'll start with the easy ones. 19 SABC radio stations. You are on one of them. I've managed the bulk of them. I've been on some of them. You know, I've been on Channel Africa, Metro FM, as you know, Radio 2000, SAFM. That's already 5. And then in terms of managing, I've been head of programming and various senior management positions at the SABC. That's 19. And then if you're counting the 6 left, I was at the inception of the first Black independent commercial radio station. I was there. We cut the ribbon. The walls were still, the cement was still wet on the walls. Kaya FM, 1997. And also had the privilege to go and head up programming at P4 Radio, which is now Ikakasi.
Ikakasi, yeah.
I was there in 1999. Where are we now? We are on 21, right?
Yeah.
21 radio stations. And then I had the privilege to go and set up. In fact, it's the first time I applied for a job. I mean, all of the other positions, I was poached, you know what I mean? I was poached from Metro FM by a consortium at the time, Tebe Investments, to join Kaya FM at the very early stages, just after they got the license. It was only Lawrence Dube and myself, in terms of established broadcasters, that started out at Kaya FM, and everybody joined in later on. So fast forward 1999, I'm in Durban. I am poached there as well by Makana Trust and the rest of it to head up programming and do their breakfast show as well. That's when I stayed for about a year in Durban. And I knew I love Durban. I mean, it's my destination of choice to this day. That's why people in Durban think I'm from there.
Is that because of the weather or the people or the town?
Everything, the weather, the people, the climate, the moods, the culture, everything. I sometimes think I'm from Durban and I'm not from there. However, when I took up the job at P4 Radio's program manager and breakfast show host in 99, I knew, much as I love Durban, I'm not going to stay there for business purposes. It's too small for me. I mean, I'm a Joburger. So I knew I gave myself a year. So as the year was coming up, a friend of mine says, there's something I saw in the newspaper. It's an international US-based digital satellite radio network called World Space Satellite Radio Network, International Satellite Radio Network. By then, digital radio was like a foreign concept. We're talking 1999. And I look at this thing, this friend sends me this thing, and I've got about 3 months left to my promise, because my year is coming up. It's not like they want me to go, but I made a promise for myself. By the way, I just gotten married in 1999. My wife is up here. Her career is also taking off. I'm down in Durban. We're like shuttling every weekend. She's coming down, she's coming up. So for that reason also, I knew that I am just going to spend a year there. And this article gets sent to me, and I'm not an admin person. Administration, we're creatives, you know, when you're in the creative space, you'd rather have the PA handle all those the paperwork and the rest of it. But it was laborious. I think it was 100 and odd messages that a questionnaire that I had to answer to the guys in Washington, D.C. And I did that over a couple of nights. This friend of mine would sit with me. We answered these questions for this application. And I just did it, sent it. The next day, the email came back. They said, we want to see you in Joburg.
Whoa.
Well, okay. We're actually flying from Washington, D.C. to come and meet you in Joburg. So I told the guys there at P4 Radio, no, I took a 2-day leave or something. I came up to Joburg. Now, you know, American positions are presidents of companies and vice president of the company. So the vice president flew up to South Africa, and the president of World Space. They were all there to meet me. Their game plan was they're going to come in one by one into the boardroom to chat to me. But the first one came in, the second one came in, and the next thing, the whole boardroom was full, and they were taking me around, showing me around. It turns out I was candidate 125 or 25th. Let's speak proper English. Candidate, 125th candidate.
Yeah.
They've scoured, the whole broadcasting industry, and apparently they were not happy or didn't find someone suitable, and I got that job. So I headed up. I know I'm still answering your 25 radio stations.
Yeah.
So I headed up 3. In fact, I had to set them up, those radio stations, from scratch. 3 of them.
Which ones are those?
Look, they lived on the digital satellite radio network.
Yeah. Okay.
So WorldSpace had satellite radio networks over 4 continents, with an estimated audience of around 4.6 billion people. At the time, if memory serves, in 1999, the global population was about 6.3 billion or something like that. The estimated audience for this network was 4.7 billion. So they had about 38 radio stations. They needed 4 more. And 2 was to come from Africa. And they thought it best be created and managed by an African. Because, what do they know about what we like? So that's how I came in. Then I created 2, but I would create another 2. So where are we now? 6 plus 21. No, 4 plus 21, that's 25.
25. Yeah. You've come a long way. You really have come a long way. But
it has been a journey, yes.
Yeah, right. Take us to your early days. Reading your profile, well, I first was introduced to your voice on Metro FM. When was this, 1986, 87? Were you one of the few guys that started the station?
I wasn't there at the very first day in 1986, but I joined the family in 89 through a friend. We became good friends, Evidence Kemp. And we hung out together. He used to hang out at a club where I used to DJ at, called Easy by Night.
Easy by Night, yeah.
On the East Rand. It was big. I mean, Brenda Fassi shot, if you see the video of Weekend Special, she's on stage with the lights and everything. She shot that video at that club. I was there that night.
Ooh.
That video was shot there. So it was a big club. Everybody used to come there, including radio DJs at the time, Metro FM and Radio Metro more specifically at the time. So we became friends, and it was natural that this is what I want to do. From the club DJ, I want to be on the radio. And then we became friends. I knocked on the Radio Metro doors to the extent I was part of them. I mean, I almost had I think I had an access card or something like that, but I wasn't working there. So, but I was there at their OBs. They knew me and I was there. But to cut long story short, I went on air in 1990, but I was part of the family through Evidence and I knew all the other guys from 89. Yes.
How did it happen that you landed on air? I guess you did say that you were interested in getting on air. Not only were these guys your friends, you obviously had to submit a demo.
Not really. Making demos was hard. I mean, how are you going to get into a studio? We didn't have the technology you have today. So through Evidence again, I went in there, applied, spoke to management at the time, and they said, come through. And I think my appointment was on a Thursday, but Wednesday nights were big nights at the club. Wednesday night, ladies' night, it was big.
Oh, yes.
I'll tell you an embarrassing story, but it's the truth. I didn't make the Thursday.
Yeah.
I didn't make the Thursday meeting. I didn't make it. And I thought, it's just a call, apologize, and I'll be given another date. That mishap of missing out on Thursday, the appointment, in 89 already, would have me sit. Had me sit on the sidelines for another year. I guess just to instill the discipline of time, discipline and time and the rest of it. So I would sit another year, keep knocking, waiting for that opportunity. And I guess there was some divine intervention. A Radio Metro listener also won some competition, and the competition they had to choose a club or a venue where they want to celebrate or something like that. Within that punishing year, that listener chose Easy by Night as the venue. So as if to
management.
Yeah, exactly, to further plead with management to say, give this guy another chance. And I was ready that night. I mean, I did the club thing like I was auditioning for radio. You know, back in those days, we used to speak, by the way. We used to talk. We used to do links in the club. Yeah, you did a link in the club. It wasn't like today. I mean, DJs just are busy scratching the whole 3 hours. We used to speak in between. So that day, I was ready because I knew most of the radio guys are coming through, Radio Metro guys. And I think the station manager was there as well. So that kind of helped a journey that was already started.
Okay.
Long and short of it, after that, then, you know, the call-up came. Surely there was something in between. I mean, I went to Mafikeng in the Northwest, also pursuing some luck. No, I didn't. I knew everybody at Radio Pop. I remember the first person I met when I walked in there was Zandi Lenzalo, and we met. But I never went on air. In fact, I did a little cameo stint on Bob TV. That was about it.
Okay.
That time, I got involved with some guys who were in music. It's another story. Remind me, I'll get back to it. I almost became an artist, you know, and whatever. I joined some band there whilst I was there. Then the call came through that my mother called me. So I'm there for a good 6 months now. Left the club and went there. My mother called me and said, there's this gentleman who called, Mr. Kushadem. They want to see you like tomorrow. I was on the bus back to Joburg, and that's how it started. But there was that year where I had to pay for my sins of not showing up on Thursday.
Now, the influence of radio stations from the former Bantustans. You're talking Bob, you're talking... what was the other one? Capital 604. And then there was Radio Siskai as well. The influence of those stations, because you'd find that Metro was actually in the early years, maybe in the first 5 years, they were poaching talent from those stations. And I guess, of course, they did have an influence into the existence of what Metro FM or Radio Metro was.
I suppose to some extent. I mean, from a license acquisition point of view and killing off, in inverted commas, competition by the public broadcaster. You know what I mean? They had to fend off competition and also get a slice of the cake. I guess strategically that was the case. But for me, specifically to your question, oh no, the bug had bitten way before the CKIs. My radio days start with LM Radio. Lorenzo Marx, I don't know if you...
I remember the name. I remember
you remember that LM. LM evolved, by the way, to 702. It evolved to become this. I mean, the early days of John Burke's, back in those days, Swazi radio, I used to listen to, and more on the Bantu radio stations, if you're talking that era, Radio Zulu. I mean, Kansas City was a great influence.
He was the man.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, my love for radio was enhanced by the likes of Kansas City, John Burke's, Martin Bailey. We're talking Springbok Radio. So those were the stations I listened to. Radio Zulu, the white radio station, Springbok Radio, LM Radio, and you know, in later years, obviously, I was already in the business myself. But if I cast my mind back, those were influential folks at the time, and the radio platforms.
In my case, the radio bug sort of like, I guess it bit me accidentally, because my mom used to listen to all these stations that I mentioned, including Radio 5, which is now 5 FM. And I was exposed to the likes of Martin Bailey, even people like Alex J in the early days. And I just could not. I was in another zone. I was in another zone.
Yeah. So I mean, you remember guys like Tony Blewett and all those guys.
So when you're talking radio, and you're talking about that era in South African radio, those were the magic years. Those were the magic years on radio. But
no doubt,
you've always been a fan of uniqueness, and in a way, you have answered the questions that I was getting into: who your main influences were, and how you managed to hone the Ernest Pillay that we know nowadays. Because it's important that you are unique on radio. But obviously, we cannot run away from the fact that we do take a bit of this from that person, a bit of this from that person. How do you build your own uniqueness with all those influences around you.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, we all get influenced by somebody or a group of people. And what happens and still happens now, and quite annoying, but I say this with much respect because I understand why people do that. But because there's a lack of teaching, some people don't get out of it.
Yeah.
So you already have Pastor the DJ. Why do we need another one?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you find some people
Pastor the DJ's job has already been taken by Pastor the DJ anyway.
Absolutely. So we I think we lack those insightful program managers, come teachers that can just nudge you or even knock you on the head to say, snap out of it, find you. Much earlier in your career. So I was no different. I remember in my early days at Radio Metro, I did that. Whoever it was I was mimicking, and the station manager called me. Mr. Koskhatebe played back the recording, and he said, leave that. We already have this guy.
Okay.
Give us you. It did that much earlier. And as I listened, I could also tell that no, there's 50% of that guy
in me
is me. Yeah, exactly. There's 50% of me, but the other 50 is someone else. And you know, Mr. Hadebe said, snap out of it. That 50, you already have it. Just enhance it more. Replace the other. We already have the other guy.
But how do you enhance that for someone who's new on radio or for someone who'd like to get on radio? How do you build your confidence in believing in yourself that people want this?
Listen to more radio. Now that in itself sounds like you falling deeper into another trap. Listen to more radio and read up on stuff. The more you empower your reservoirs with information and trust, your tone, your voice, your level of confidence, your nuances, how you, Pastor the DJ, says things, the more you trust that. And how you build that trust is by enhancing your reservoirs of knowledge and listen to different people, not to mimic them. You already know now that you shouldn't mimic other people, assuming somebody has told you that, as in my case. You now build your reservoirs of knowledge, different styles of how people do things, still guided by the fact that you are in pursuit of Pastor the DJ or Ernest Pillay. You know, you're wanting to find. And then you build. You go from 50% where you were borrowing from someone. Now you're hitting 70. Your confidence grows and grows. You are, before you know it, you are 100% uniquely Pastor the DJ. You have your own nuances. You build more and listen to yourself. Listen back. You know when you are mimicking Pastor the DJ. You would be the first to know. When you listen back, they don't do Snoop sessions anymore. You need to do that for yourself. You need to record yourself. I used to record myself, not links, the entire show, and drive to Magaliesburg.
Listening to
yourself. 10 minutes. 10 minutes in, when you put in that cassette tape, back in those days, when I put it in, 10 minutes in, the mind is amazing. You forget you're listening to a recording. You are listening to radio, to yourself. It's annoying at first. But you listen to yourself. Listen to yourself when you go into ad breaks. Listen to them. Don't fast forward. Listen to the ads, because you are trying to get you in real time how you sound. Listen to yourself when you come out, how the songs come out, how you fire the jingles. Listen to yourself for the entire 3 hours. Take a drive. I used to do that because you can't hear yourself when you're on the air. And even in those days, when they do Snoop session, by definition, Snoop means they're prying into your privacy. But even then, they don't have all day to listen 3 hours. They're going to take snippets of what you say. It's good, but it's not the real thing. So as part of finding yourself, record yourself entirely and listen to yourself in your show in its entirety. You begin to understand your mistakes, your strengths, and you know what to build on. And you hear that Pastor the DJ coming through, and you go, no, I need to kill that. So you deal with every nuance.
You have to be your biggest critic, because at the end of the day, honesty. You have to be honest with yourself, because you know exactly what you want to sound like. And if it's not what you're getting as you're listening back to your tape, obviously there's some work to be done.
Absolutely. And you'll be the first to know when you are mimicking somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. Now, 30 plus years on radio, do you still practice your links? Do you still write them down?
Now, here's the amazing, resounding answer. Yes, I do.
Yes. I'm not the
Yes,
only one. I'm not abnormal.
I still do. In fact, I was telling a colleague of mine the other day that I still do. But here's the beauty of experience and practice over time. Ronaldo is not the greatest player in the world just by mistake.
Yeah.
They go to practice on the grounds there at Man United or as far back as Juventus, Real Madrid.
Yeah.
The clubs and the coach says you got 2 hours to practice. Everybody goes in their Ferraris and expensive cars. Ronaldo puts in another 2 hours on his own. That's why he's Ronaldo. So to your question, to this day, I still do prep. Here's the magic though, with experience. I sometimes just take a glance at it and hardly even refer to it because just one glance is enough. However, there are days when you're not at the top of your game. There are days like that.
Yeah.
The prep is here. The prep is here. But most of the time, I take a glance at it and I go, okay, it's done. But it's there. But it's there. You see what I mean?
I do get you. I do get you. You know, for some time now, I thought I was strange. And even my friends thought that I was strange. I'd be sitting at a braai with friends and I'd quickly dash to the car. This was before cell phones. I'd quickly dash to the car because I had my diary in the boot. And I'd always write down these notes. Because of that experience, one thing I learned over time was that the content, well, nowadays, a lot of people rely on the internet. They rely on Twitter for content. But the best content is always the one that I pick up while I'm among people, in conversations, in how things are done, walking through town, driving through town. That's when the best content comes up, because when you deliver it on air, it's stuff that people can relate to.
It's authentic. And I tell people when I do my masterclasses or even in my program management roles that I've played over the years, I tell on-air presenters that the life of a radio presenter doesn't begin just when you are preparing 2 hours to go to the show. It's around you. When you go shopping at the malls, life happens. And when you capture those moments and you link them with your music and your situation, it's real. People can relate. But you're not going to win when only an hour to go, you're going to go to Wikipedia and start reading, where was Quincy Jones born? And then you're going to read me that caption. It will come off as read. Yeah. It comes off as being read, and everybody can go to Google and Google where Quincy was born. And you're not telling me anything. But if you're linking a life situation that you have observed, as broadcasters should do, you may want to talk about Quincy. But how you get there is by relaying or telling a real life story you've observed about yourself, about your friends, about family or life in general. And then you kind of link it to that, but it's no longer just read.
Yeah, it's got
Google information. It's got a human, real story behind it. So it never ends. The prep doesn't just start 2 hours and Googling stuff. Of course, you need to do that. But your radio content, you said it, is around you every day.
I just picked up something. Life happens. Now I understand what the name of your weekend show means on SAFM.
Exactly.
I couldn't get my head around it, but as you just mentioned it, I'm like, okay, this is where it came from. Yes. Now I understand.
Absolutely.
There was a tweet you posted a few weeks ago. Perhaps you didn't mention any names, but you were just voicing an opinion, just like everyone else on social media. And it's where you mentioned early days on Metro FM, where people weren't just thrown into prime time. People had to go through the ropes. People had to work in the mornings. People have to do graveyard shifts. You are prepared for prime time. And I'm paraphrasing this, but where did that come from, and what do you have to say in elaborating on that tweet?
That tweet, surely it's loaded without going into detail, which I will do now. It really came off conversations you have with people. I mean, guys on air still reach out. I have people I know within the industry. Somebody will be frustrated by one thing or the other, and they'll reach out. We have a conversation. But again, now that I think about it, it's that time of the year. You know, this tweet was last month, right?
Yeah, it was.
You know that. You know that cycle of our radio world. Oh Lord, I don't know why that is. Every March, you've got to hold on for your dear life because you don't know whether you are on April 1 or not. And it only happens, I dare say it, on Black Radio, where the 30th of March, when it looms, everybody is praying and consulting Sangoma and Namadlozi. Because you just don't know whether you're on air April 1 or not. Why is that? And I think it came off a conversation like that, which I have with people that reach out to me almost every year without fail. And I guess our conversation led to me even tweeting that these were the good old days when you still had to audition. There was an induction process where you had to be taken through the ropes. I mean, when I hit on air, I had spent 3 months in the dungeon there on K2. Radio Metro was still there at the bottom at K2 at the SABC. And there was, like all radio stations, there's a production studio. I was told to get in there every day for 3 months. I was made to believe that I'm being heard in the building. That's what Mr. Khadev told me those days. So we can hear you every day. But I obviously discovered later there was no technology like that. There was a gentleman called Stan. He would take the real tapes and take them up after my 3 hours every 3 months so they can listen. They can listen back. But because I was none the wiser, so they will tell me things I said. I was like, oh, it means they can really hear me. But that's a kind of induction process we went through. What happens today? Today, you get pulled off social media and you get pulled off because you're popular culture, and you get put on air. I'm not saying you might not have the talent that people can pick up through whatever video clips you do on YouTube and whatever. Good. But we can't bypass basic sacrosanct induction processes. In soccer, you go to trials, don't you? They don't just take you and put you into a Manchester derby. Bactology, you came from somewhere. Tomorrow you are playing a Manchester derby. It doesn't happen like that. You go through trials, things that happen for months and months behind the scenes, right? Before we see your name being mentioned on a Manchester United lineup. Not unless you're already established. I mean, they're taking you from a Chelsea or Madrid. That's another story. But when you get groomed, you go through induction processes. So I think that tweet stemmed out of that. That, you know, it's sad when you look these days how folks get put on air. And don't get me wrong, the fault is not with them, the young people that find themselves on air. No one walks in and says, PastorTheDj, keep up magic. I mean, no. Someone gets hired in the offices there, they talk and they sign contracts, and the guy or girl is on air the next day, and you listen and you go, how did this happen? Yeah. But it's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's the managers that hire them.
I guess if I understand you clearly, the standards on radio nowadays have dropped.
Absolutely. I mean, I say that with sadness, but at the same time, I say it without blinking an eye. They have. You just need to listen, and you can tell.
How do we save the situation? Is it too late?
It depends. It depends what you mean by too late. Because to fix the problem, let me give you an example. 2 of my best teams in the world are going through the same problem. Manchester United and Kaizer Chiefs.
Oh,
dismal performances. What has happened in the last 2 weeks with those 2 clubs? What has happened?
They changed
coaches are gone.
Yeah, 5 coaches.
Absolutely. What happens in our radio sphere?
They fire
lineup
the DJ.
Changes.
They fire the DJs.
Lineup changes every year. Lineup changes. When the question should be from the executives, if your lineup changes every year, doesn't that obviously signal that the last decision you made was a wrong decision? Or the decisions you make every year are wrong. So you are wrong for the job. Because if you keep changing, and yet we've had years. Yeah, we've had years. Our Kansas have spent many years on radio. There wasn't this constant change. And it doesn't happen, by the way, on so-called white radio. And I'm being very blunt here. but the question should be asked, if I go back again to the coaching thing in soccer, that if you are changing every year, it means every decision you make every year is wrong. But no, that question never gets asked. The changer remains. It keeps changing. The changer keeps changing on air, people.
Yeah.
Where's the problem?
Yeah.
Look, if I throw it back at you, where's the problem?
no, it's there. It's there.
It's obvious where the problem is.
It's there. No, we know. It's there.
So we can save it if we are honest enough and go solve the problem there where I'm pointing it to.
Yeah. Look,
get the right people to run radio.
Yeah, you've been on different stations with different formats on radio. I mean, you've done smooth jazz, you've done pop, you've done talk radio. Which one do you feel comfortable at the most, or which one did you enjoy the most?
Listen, I've enjoyed what I've consistently done over the years, which is music radio. Music radio primarily, and 2000, Radio 2000. I was fortunate to have been tasked by management at the time to take it over. It was redundant. Radio 2000. Not many people knew about Radio 2000 10 years ago or 12 years ago. It was there. And it was used previously, as you know, as a simulcast when you are watching Demand Fund style on
Steve
TV.
Austin,
if you want Steve Austin, if you want the original English soundtrack, you go to Radio 2000. It was just a redundant
or the
station.
Invisible Man. Remember that? The Invisible Man.
So you go and listen to the English translation or simulcast. You go to Radio 2000. In recent years, and when I say recent, late 90s, early 2000s, it was known for cricket, also serving just a small section of our greater population. And at the time, SABC management said, please do something with this radio station. I went in there and they said, come up with a concept. My concept was, it's already playing in the sport arena in terms of carrying cricket. How about we make it a music sport radio station? Yes. And that's why I did the first radio show, drive show with Carol Manana, now Shabalala. We did the first radio show. I poached her back from Kaya FM. She had left. And we did the first radio show, formal radio program. Prior to it, there's nothing. It's just random. The station manager just puts on music, and then 3 o'clock would come on. But I was still in management, so I was wearing two hats. I was heading up programming for all 19 SABC radio stations, as I mentioned. So I knew I won't do it for long. I was just sitting in there until we get somebody to come and do it. That's why, if you remember, there was Victor K. At a later stage who worked with Carol, because I had to step back into my management role. But the strategy was in my hands. And we brought in everybody. Today, Radio 2000 is popular. But that's how it started. And then I would come back when I relinquished completely my management roles at the SABC. I said I was done. I don't know what I was going to do. I must have had a plan, but I was done. They said, no, please don't go. You started Radio 2000. How about a show there? I said, no, you still have it in you. Then I went back and took up the drive time show. That show and that platform was beautiful in that it was music, and I wanted to bring in some content, whether current affairs, but on a lighter note, but be in line and in tune with what was happening. I wanted to speak about climate change. If you remember, I had all those features, current affairs, climate change, but done in a very accessible way. It was not above people's head, the way traditional talk radio works. And that worked beautifully. So that was for me a culmination of my music radio experience, but culminating into content that touches all facets of our lives, whether we're talking climate change, we're talking health issues. I packaged it all in there, but with the core ingredient still being music. So I loved the time at Radio 2000. But back to your question, because I don't forget questions. Your question was, which did I enjoy the most? I enjoyed the music radio the most. And if you want to ask the question, but I'll preempt you, it was a personal decision. that I've done all these formats, as you said, pop, rock, whatever, jazz, African, pure African. By the way, Channel Africa was pure African. Yeah. And one of the radio stations that I set up at World Space Digital Satellite Radio Network was pure African music from the continent and everywhere, because you can't sell Americans hip hop, but I can sell them kwasa kwasa, I can sell them gqom and all our African music. So I've done all those formats, but I had a quest that I've not done talk radio.
Is that why you moved from 2000 to SAFM? Because
that's why I moved there.
I've never heard you in that space, and it was quite enjoyable, actually.
I'll get to that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I didn't, as a teaser to where I'm going to. The deal there was different. The deal was, let's try something different. We'll sneak in, not sneak in, I mean, it was strategically going to be done strategically. We'll put in a song or two where appropriately needed, and so on. I'm not going to divulge too much of what the strategy was. I still work there. But there was the plan, and that plan did not see the light of day, but I was already committed. Did you get that?
I did. I understand 100%. 100%.
But I was already committed.
Yeah.
And I'm not one to back down. I was like, okay, it doesn't look anything like what we discussed, but I'm in it.
Yeah.
It's still talk radio. It's still something, a box I want to tick. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I knew from day one, I'm not loving this. It's the first time I'm saying it openly, but I'm open and honest.
But why did you?
I didn't enjoy it.
Or was the concept good on paper or in your mind, and when it came to the execution, it came out differently than you expected?
No, that's why I want to recap. That's why I emphasized if you got the point that I made. When the proposition was made, it was, it's not going to be as hard. You know, we hardcore current affairs and people are being pressured, whatever a typical hardcore current affairs is. It will have some of the ingredients that you already have, whether it's climate change from Radio 2000, we'll fuse them together and we'll try and maybe even a lighter note on delve into the entertainment space and whatever, you know what I mean? We'll keep it light, not as hardcore. In a nutshell, without going into much detail. But as I said, that plan never saw the light of day. It literally, when I took to the air on the first day, it went back to what it was, because my deal was, I won't do it as it is. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
There are experts in this thing. I don't like it for various reasons, which I will tell you now. But unbeknownst to me, whatever the issues were, it went back to exactly what it was.
Back to what
so I knew from day one. Back to what they proposed and we discussed we wanting to get away from. But when I took to the air, it went back to exactly what it always has been.
And how long was that stint on that particular show? 1 year?
That stint was a year, exactly. And I knew from day one that I will not do a day extra.
Were you fired from it, or did you request that they remove you from that space because it just wasn't, well, the initial idea?
No, Pastor, let me go back again. I knew from day one that I will not last a day longer.
Okay.
I already knew.
Yeah.
Given that the actual plan was not implemented, we went back to what they were. They told me they want to. They went back to what they had told me they want to get away from.
Yeah.
So I knew, but let me further answer the question in this way and say, I personally did not enjoy it because of. Let me start here. I thrive on positive energy. That's just me personally as an individual. I thrive on positive energy. Do I then say, being a broadcaster, we need to shy away from the hardcore challenges that we face or our communities face? No, we don't. But there are people
for that,
who are for that. It wasn't for me. And touch wood. I mean, the topics in that year, not that they've gone away. It was from GBV to extreme gruesome violence being meted out on the most vulnerable, on women and children. And you sit with that story. You sit with it from Monday. The court case is tomorrow. You must review the details of who said what in court. Let me tell you, Pastor, I will come home. Normally, I would come home, put on the news, and my children retreat to their bedrooms, or I'll catch up with them and whatnot. For that year, I personally changed the channel to Nickelodeon or Disney. I didn't want to watch anything to do with news. I just wanted the cooking channel, or let's just watch the home channel.
Anything else but the news, because you dealt with news at work.
Yep. And the worst part, it was gruesome stories that you hear. Family of 5 was gutted down and mowed down by some crazy man. And you sit with that story, it affects you. So I knew that current affairs in that sense is not for me, because I thrive on positive energy. And as I said, sadly, that year, oh, Lord have mercy. I mean, it was a gruesome story from all corners of our country, unfortunately.
Was that your worst year on radio? Would you classify that year as? Because of the content? No. What was your worst year on radio?
There's a show I did, and again, this is a scoop for you. I'm not going to say much. There's a show I did.
I'm collecting scoops this morning. This morning, I'm just getting scoops, scoop after scoop.
There's a show I did on Radio 2000. After I had established 2000, I did the afternoon sports show, like I said. Then I retreated back to my management days. Then I did Drive Time Experience and another show midday prior to Drive Time Experience. Those were after, but there was one show there just prior to Drive Time Experience. There's a show there I did. That was probably the worst thing I've ever done on radio.
Which one was that? What was it called?
No, I'm going to leave that for you to find out. But it was the worst thing I've done.
Why was it so?
I also knew from the day it was proposed to me that it's not going to work. It just didn't work. We were co-presenting. I knew it. Every day it killed me, because I knew that I'm giving 10% to the listener than what I know. But it wasn't of my doing. I was there and I was thrust in there, and I took it. For what reason? I guess you can still say I'll use this as a escape route for the love of radio, but I didn't love that time. That's probably the worst thing, and I've never said it. And it's nothing to do with. It's nothing personal. It's just I knew it wasn't going to work, and it didn't work for me, and it's probably the worst thing I've ever done. If ever there was a year where I knew every day that this is not working, it was that time.
Chemistry,
you'll find out what that is.
Chemistry is everything when you work with a team, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why sometimes program managers get it right, and most of the time they get it wrong. You don't just take people from all different walks and just thrust them together and tomorrow and switch on the mic and you say magic must happen. No, sometimes you get lucky, but that's rare. But that's why you need management insights for you to know, I'm bringing in this character for this purpose, and this one will complement this one, and this thing together in unison. You're conducting a choir, but the magic must start in your head as program manager, and so on, to say, as I'm pulling these characters together, yes, they don't know each other, but I know of them and their different strengths. It's like setting up a team. When you decide you're going to go on a 4-4-2 strategy, it's because you know your midfielders and your strikers and your backlines will complement. It's the same. It's different in radio, but I find these days they just thrust people together and throw them in the river and hope they all can swim.
Let me pick your brain again about something else that you wrote an article on. Radio awards. Radio awards. I read a piece you wrote some time ago, and I have to agree with you. You sort of like put into words what has always been there. in my mind. I mean, with our show, we've been on the show now on Umhlobo on the breakfast show. We started the show about 12 years ago. Patco was with us for a good 5 years of the 12, and I've been anchoring the show, started as the producer and co-presenter of the show, and I've been anchoring the show for about 5-6 years now. When Patco left, the numbers never dropped. We kept it natural and we kept it healthy, in a healthy position. We sustained the listenership. Quite strangely, we were the second biggest show between us and Ukhozi. It was always, and it always has been, and it still is, you know, us exchanging positions. We've never won a single award. And we've always said, but the numbers are there. The numbers don't lie. We've got people who are committed to the show. We've got people who are hooked to the show every day. Consistently, we've always managed to deliver on content, not only on content, but on revenue as well. And when it comes to the awards, and we got to a point where we said, we're not entering these awards. And the station would say, no, but you have to because of your numbers and whatnot. And we said, no, we don't want to be part of this because we feel like the whole concept and how the whole thing is done, it really doesn't benefit anyone. And it's in the how that they decide on the awards that are given out. And without any disrespect to anyone who's won an award, but how do you judge people on content, a year's content? You judge on how well you did this year only on a 6-minute snippet.
Absolutely. Now, I'm glad you saw the article. I wrote that article in 2013. It's 9 years to this day, isn't it? 9 years ago, I wrote the article. But first, let me start by saying, when a pastor, I am in support of any award ceremony that seeks to reward people, recognize people across the spectrum, across all industry, whether you're in the mining sector or tech or whatever, including broadcasting. I support that because as humans, you want to be validated. You want to be appreciated in your craft that you pour your heart and soul into. So I'm in support of that. I don't want to be labeled as someone who's against. Award ceremonies are wonderful. They are wonderful. They make people grow, believe in themselves, and feel appreciated. However, if done wrong, they can do the exact opposite and kill the spirit, like you just said now about your entries and how well you're doing, but you haven't received the recognition. So when done wrong, they can also cause harm to the very industry that they supposedly want to reward people in. You take the Oscars, you take the Academy Awards. I mean, all the drama that's coming out there, the racism and the rest of it. So more specifically to my article, those were some of the issues that plagued me. Number one, the fact that you have to enter. Now, if Pastor the DJ says, me, I love radio so much, I'm going to start an award ceremony. Oh, wonderful. I'll applaud you because I love the industry. This was my life. I've been doing radio for 32 years. Then pastor has to make it his business to say, I will gather all the resources to make sure that my awards are as authentic as the industry deserves, right? Pastor must have all the resources, people, staff, technology that will give him a 99.9% vision of why Jacob Dlamini deserves the best radio presenter award of the year, or Station X deserves best radio station of the year. I will have enough resources that will leave no one in doubt of how I arrived at awarding this award, right? That's Pastor the DJ's problem if he so decides to set up a conglomerate. No one is holding him at gunpoint to set it up. But he best, or she best, have all these resources and tools to leave no one in doubt as to how you arrived at awarding these awards to the respective categories, right? Therefore, you kind of mitigate the issue of entry. Because case in point, I feel if you're good and you're doing breakfast show wherever, wouldn't it be wonderful and satisfying already if you got an email or a phone call from the awards organization saying, Pastor the
You
DJ.
have been nominated
This
or
is
selected.
Jacob Lamini. You've been nominated, my friend, because we think your show is among the best in the country. Okay. You didn't do anything. You're just doing what you love. Number one. But you, Pastor the DJ, must tell them that I think I'm the best. Sorry, by submitting an entry. Let's deal with that one. If you don't, walala wasala. Yeah. You could be kicking butt there, pulling 10 million audiences per 3 hours every. But if you don't 7 submit, days. You know what? If you don't submit, you're as good as non-existent. You don't exist. Number one, there's a problem for me. Secondly, when you submit, you said it, and I articulated very clearly in my article as well. Look it up, by the way, anyone who's going to be watching this. Just Google Ernest Pillay SA Radio Awards. You'll find that article. Yeah. I then say, let's come to the submission itself. No longer than 6 minutes. Now, that was 2013. Pastor, with the technology that exists today, even in 2013, yeah, I can cut up. In fact, any one member of my family can edit and drop lines into a 6-minute recording and send to you, Pastor the DJ. You will say, hey, Mr. Pillay, you've been hoarding the space, but that family member of yours, I can kick butt. They are hot. Why? Because the technology can allow you. Yeah. You can drop a line, a word every day and put it together so nicely that when I listen, I think, wow. Let me give you another example. Over the years in my management role, program, head of programming, and otherwise, I have received tons, hundreds of tapes, audition tapes. Yeah, demos. I made it my duty that 5 o'clock, back in those days, 5 o'clock when I switch off, if I talk about SABC and everywhere else I've been, when I switch off for the day, you know, the computer, the old computers must still switch off. And I made it a point. I had a little hi-fi in my office that I will take just one cassette tape or CD, put it in whilst I'm putting on my jacket and putting, you know, wrapping up in my office. I'll listen to something. I might find something. I have come across many a kick butt. On the demo, they kick butt. Beautiful. And I would call them and say, let's go for an audition downstairs or in a studio. It's night and day. The thing that I heard on the tape or the CD and the person that I'm watching live, it's like, hey, are you sure this is you? Point I'm making. The entries at the Radio Awards are no longer than 6 minutes. You can edit down a 6-minute recording. Even if you've never sat behind a microphone, it can sound like you are the best thing ever in radio. Do you sound like that when you are live on air? Yeah. The answer is no. Chances are 99.9% of the time is no. But let's say you are. Is it a fair reflection? You're on the air Monday to Friday doing drive time. Every week, every month, 12 months a year. But you're going to be judged on snippets of little gigglings and links here that you do. Let me tell you, I dare say, there are people sitting on the judging panels who have probably never listened to the awards that they give to the people that they dish out awards to. They've never heard them in real radio terms, in real life terms. But they sit there and vote. Is it an honest reflection of the talent, the work that goes into the business? Hell no, it's not. I mean, I'm not going to hold back anything. I've written the article. That's two of the issues I have. And I illustrate it. I mean, I make many examples. Yeah. If you take the Oscars, when they give you that sought after Oscar, the statuette, the Foreign Press Association, by definition, Foreign Press Association, they have movie buffs, gurus around the world that watch over 400 films per year. They go to, what do you call them? these movie premieres in countries you and I have never heard of. That's why every year you hear them giving an award, a statuette to a foreign movie. We can't even, of languages we don't even understand, probably will never understand, because they have people everywhere. They watch over 400 movies in their entirety. They don't watch trailers. Because, another example, how many times, Pastor the DJ, have you said in your living room and the trailer came on? He vowed to take out everyone in his path. Blah, 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 blah. The sound is going. This is a movie, you don't want to miss, and the rest of it. And you take your $100 and you spend 2 hours and you go, this was the worst 2 hours I've spent of my life. But the trailer
you
got you out of the house.
On watching the trailer.
Am I making a point?
Yeah.
Is my point becoming clearer?
It's much
so
clearer now.
When you base the radio award statuettes on well-edited sound effects put in, everything, voice enhancements, submissions, and you tell me that's the best radio presenter in the country, and I go, really? The Ballon d'Or I cite as an example. If the Ballon d'Or was not judged by captains of teams, team managers from around the world, scouts, soccer journalists, all form part of the Ballon d'Or, we would not know, or at least we would know, but they would not be recognized, Ronaldo
or
Messi. Because Pastor the DJ and I can set up a team, Mafong Kong FC. Sidlale, si beti bola, si edit just the parts where Pastor is scoring. Why Pastor is scoring. Si submit a tape, FIFA Ballon d'Or conglomerate, and they look at that video.
Best goal of
the year. This is the best goal of the year. Pastor is just banging goals because si editile land Thomas. Say practice.
Mafong Kong FC.
That's what the radio awards are run.
Yeah.
Because they just believe in that 6-minute tape.
Yeah.
I mean, I become even cynical and say, you mean Baza Opanomdo who's not even on radio?
Yeah. And
because who submitted?
Yeah, they only realize their mistake. Yeah, they won't even realize
anyway. Yeah, this person is not even on radio, but go tatwa tapes.
Yeah.
Saga 6 minutes. I think I've made my point.
Oh, you have. In fact, Nampinamdo Mameleyo, they need to go and look for that article. I mean, there's so many other things that you mentioned, Apawena, that are on the article, and even other examples, Osbegileyo Paya, that people can actually read through. And as I said at the beginning of my question, Indogba, I read that piece and I'm like, yeah, this has put into words what I have been saying all along, or what I could not even say all along. Because any problem is that, once you speak on these things, people start saying that, you beat us simply because.
They did exactly that again. Like I said, this article was published by Sunday Independent, I think City Press as well.
Yeah.
Sensational writing. But Ernest Pillay strikes a sour note. He headline, Ernest Pillay strikes a sour note, the radio awards. Snippets of what I've just said, which is elaborate. Nogba is a sour grape because he didn't get. But that's how some journalists just sensationalize Izindo. It went on to that, but I didn't care. But they had the whole article. They took a few snippets there. They didn't even cite everything else I said. Pitted me against the founder of the awards. Here's the irony. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
Because they are coming up now, these awards. So stations will send you an email and say, hey, the awards are coming up. You must submit, right?
Submit.
So there's two ways of entering. You enter Gowena because it warrants your signature. Ne? You say, Pastor the DJ, I am entering best DJ of the year, whatever the categories are. Presenter of the year, Nandon, best you assigner. But there's another one where your signature and your consent doesn't matter. It's the station, platform. The station can enter whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
So after the article, obviously I did not enter. I've never entered for the reasons just mentioned now. But Yaifaga Radio 2000, program, drive time. Yaifaga Yona because it's their prerogative to enter the program, not me.
Yeah.
Yeah, California, I mean, it was a Saturday. About 2 months after the article. So I've won Best Presenter Drive Time.
Yes.
That statue is still hanging, I think, somewhere on the walls by Radio 2000. It means nothing to me.
Yeah, yeah. It would have been hypocritical if we're now Ubitati, because nothing has changed since.
No, but you're going far.
Now.
No, but we are good. What the coincidence? I mean, the coincidence is just glaringly. The head on Galento 2 months ago.
And then all of a sudden, back Winnie's. I get you. Tiago. Let's change to something else. Your early days on radio. Hey, Metro, man. I remember those days, radio used to make TV stars. Nowadays, it seems it's the other way around. Because I remember, I remember seeing you in one of the videos. What was the song again?
Was it Get Funky?
No, it wasn't.
No, I think was it Zeke or something like that. I can't remember the title.
And I think Ubongani was singing the traditional Mbaqanga part in that song. And everyone in the industry was there. Whether soccer players, actors, radio people, you were there. At some point, you also did Studio Mix. And the TV roles, presenter started rolling in. But it looks like these days, it's more like Jabuchil, about the social media, now being filtered into radio. People on TV being filtered into radio as well. And I look at radio as one of those career paths, or careers where you can't just be taken from wherever uzo fagwa up. There's more that is required from umdu ose radio. Talent, training, as well as a passion for Lenduyenza and an inquisitive mind. So many people are misplaced on radio. Would you agree? Without mentioning any names, of course.
Very true, and I'm not shy to say that. I mean, I've said it at the start of our conversation, and it's not the fault of the people that are on air. It's just something has gone horribly wrong in the placement of those who manage the radio stations. And for them, and it's not all of them, but I'm saying it seems like it's quite a handful, because the radio just keeps going down, and really it's about misplacement and incompetency. I'll call it what it is, of some of those who are placed in management roles, that they put in these folks who are none the wiser. I mean, if you believe you can do something, it's good, but sometimes you get a rude awakening that no, you can't do it.
Let me throw a spanner in the works. Do you think former presenters make better managers? Does one have to be on radio to be a good radio manager, programs manager?
Not necessarily, but you stand a good chance, because not everyone can be a manager. You see, it gets a bit tricky, just because it's the same as not everyone who's played soccer can be a coach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or a manager.
Jose Mourinho, for instance,
has never played.
Yeah, but he makes a good.
But he's it makes a good manager. So it's yes and no. But here we're not even going there. We're just taking a bantu who says I can be a manager.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Before we even delve into the question whether or not being a presenter makes a good, we're not doing that. We just take someone. You could come from a sugar company, and no disrespect to people who work in the sugar industry, but we are come and manage. It's different worlds. Much as a radio person, I can't go work and make sugar. I don't know. I'll put it in my tea and my coffee, but I don't know how I have an idea, but I'll probably fail at managing.
A sugar mill company, Now, this space of ours taking a totally different turn. You know, radio makes solo good sit it's the theater of the mind. Now you get into studio, there's cameras, there's this and that and that and that. Is this the direction that radio is taking? The visual part of it being added to Lendo Besologo Cienza over the years?
Yes. In fact, before we even go to the the visual aspect of it.
Yeah.
I mean, in my management days, we used to talk about podcasts. It was a futuristic thing. He says, because we would go, or we would call in consultants from Australia and the UK.
They talk about these podcasts.
They spoke about these things way back then, you know, and podcasts are coming, radio is going to be done this way, and there'll be integration of social media, Twitter, and all of that. And as a person in management, you have to come up with strategies that inculcate all these futuristic platforms. I'll go to what the future is going to look like. And I said, and I still maintain, Pangoko, although it seems like the ship has sailed, I said, radio won't be threatened. The same threats were being made when television was introduced in this country in 1976, that it's going to kill radio. It didn't. Radio still survived. And I said, social media won't either. However, the moment social media arrives and we do this sin of abdicating our role as being the leaders of content aggregators, in other words, kause moyeni, the thing you mentioned earlier, what are you bringing? Before uyojonga social media, uzanandoni as your prep wena that you think is worthy of putting out on air. In other words, your prep, and take lead. But what has happened with social media? You listen to the presenters. If the load shedding, 8 hours are down, with the presenters today.
Load shedding.
The lights are literally off. Load shedding. Serious. If networks, because they did exactly what I was warning about. These are social media, like everything else. We'll take it on board, but we must always take the lead. Since I incorporate into radio, but the moment we abdicate our duty as broadcasters, and it's happening today. I'm telling you now, let there be load shedding. 8 hours. They are in the dark, literally. Nobody generator who's keeping them on air. But if you generating,
because
I got access to internet.
Look, ininzi into zithethileyo apha, and there's so much that abantu abazoyifunda kule nto le. I understand bukathetha ngaphambili nge-masterclasses zakho ziqale ngo-2016. What exactly are you teaching about it, and how accessible are those masterclasses? Now, for umntwana obawela ufunda more about radio, of course, radio practitioners would be interested in that. Tell us more about the masterclass that you had.
The masterclasses really are radio fundamentals, as is which are being left out. Induction, earlier on. The very fundamentals, because you can't just get into a space shuttle. Spend a good, how many years? I don't know, 10 years at NASA, from fundamentals of how this thing is put together. Out of the Earth's atmosphere, you explore other galaxies, you get taught all of this. So I teach the basics until you are flying like a space shuttle level. So in a nutshell, it had an etiquette on air, show prep, relationship ne producer vis-a-vis, co-presenting, your role in society and media, the power yalendo, this microphone, to build or destroy. As people don't get taught, hence people say stuff and whatnot, not realizing the influence this thing holds. So in master classes, they deal with the fundamentals, the basics, up to the level of how you become a master at your craft.
I'm looking forward to that. How do we access that?
You access that by calling me to come and give a master class at your radio station, at your broadcasting organization, whatever the case may be. But they go fine beyond, because communication cuts beyond radio. Although the specialty and the focus is on radio, you get called by companies sometimes to give a talk on a particular subject, but that centers around communication. I do those as well. But as a radio, call me up, ernest.pillay@gmail.com, email. I can come to your radio station, your community radio station, whatever the space is. okanye i-conglomerate of a broadcast media house. I come and we discuss whether it's a day course or 2-day course, depending on when.
Yeah.
And I meet with the team.
You sound like a man that's very hard to please when it comes to radio, because yonke into ikona ilapha kuwe. What do you enjoy listening to? Who do you even enjoy listening to?
Nothing.
On the radio? Nothing.
The problem, nothing. And with much respect, there are people who are good, but there's another thing you lose when you have delved into the media space, like some of us, being both on air and having been behind the scenes in management. You lose your innocence. Let me explain. I was a mameli radio, like an ordinary listener. You can even hear studio. How can this person walk in when the microphone is on? Yeah, but I start agonizing. My children wonder what's wrong with that in the car, because you lose your innocence in terms of radio listening.
And I spoke about this, not David, and I asked him the same question. I'm one of the worst people to listen to radio with. My wife has come to a realization, let's rather play music in the car, because you are very hard to please. And I'm always doing a snoop. A snoop. You're
doing a snoop. So yeah. It agonizes me. But I also give credit where it's due. In part because of my children, and Namiga, it stays there. Anele, top of a game. Anele, daughter, top of a game. I listen to her because, by the way, Anele, if you're watching this, my children even ask me. I would have left the radio on my radio station on Sunday. Monday morning, when you get in the car, they say, hey, Anele and the team. So kudos to Anele. Undoubtedly one of the finest in the game today. But I listen, it's fun. I can understand all her, the style and the content, how it's placed, and she understands it, she gets it. So I listen. That's probably the only program I listen to because of my children in part, but I appreciate what she does. That's it. As in, no, it's agony. I don't listen.
With no disrespect to everyone else who's on radio.
For sure.
Yeah. Where to next for you? 32 years now. How many more years do you still have in you?
The beauty about radio, unlike soccer, I mean, you can have the heart. Your knees will tell you, no, it's time to hang up the boots. Radio, I went abroad one time and we were driving into in the States, and we're listening to this person. They are kicking it.
Yeah.
Talking all things happening right now, hip hop and the rest of it. We get in there. The guy is 63 years old.
What?
He's on drive. When I listened to that guy, it was like I'm listening to some 20-something-year-old is with it. You get inside. The guy is in his 60s. So the beauty about radio, I'm not saying I'll do it until a particular year, but the beauty about what we do is, if you stay relevant, current, and you're still sharp, you can do it until you decide. But of course, it's not quite that way here in South Africa. So there's that March, April.
Yeah. Relevance. Let's talk relevance before I let you go. So many years, and you still remain relevant. I'm sure there's generations of people who have been listening to radio in South Africa, who abanye babo bazalwa ukhona, and others are still listening to you even up until this day. How do you keep yourself relevant after such a long time on radio?
Love and passion. There is no dull moment. It's the same example I cited about Ronaldo. You don't keep at something with complacency, whatever that might be. It will just fizzle out, becomes mediocre over time. I treat this thing, my family can tell you, I still treat it as if it's 1990 all over again. Like Alekon, in terms of trap. Oh, and there's one thing I value the most in the whole equation. Program manager, producer, the rest, everyone. There's one person I respect the most, and I would never want to disappoint, is the listener. That is my number one priority. I don't care who or he or she is. I have that person in mind. But tomorrow, when they choose me, it's worse today with all the media platforms and options they have. They have made an appointment to listen to me. I best be at the top of my game. For me, I'm a performer. You know, when the curtain opens, the show is on until I take a bow. Until I take a bow and the curtain draws close. That's how I regard every show. To this day, it's no different. I think it's worse than it was in terms of prep and seriousness than it was in 1990 when I started. That's how serious I take it. And in part, I think, and I hope that answers your question, I take nothing for granted from the song I'm going to open with. Nalenza Falangayo, I have it in my mind.
I know I said that was going to be my last question, but now that you've brought this up, I'm a loyal listener Sundays, by the way, because on Sundays, with us as Abantu Big Gigs, you find yourself driving home on that Sunday. In Klambi weekend, you were somewhere, and the Eastern Cape is quite big. So Amakloshamanins, we're always driving through the province. And the SAFM, Pansay, Eastern Cape, You'll
find it, yes. In the furthest, most south, whatever they say in terms of geographic terms, like Fumani SAFM.
Exactly. So I find myself listening to you almost on a regular basis, almost every weekend, every Sunday, in Agumbi on Sundays. But how you do it, how you link yourself. Do you compile your own music? Because you seem to have a story for each and every single artist. And I'm asking myself, when did he collect the information? If Lomkulo was compiled by someone else for you, you obviously have to look up the information. Everything just blends so well. The conversation, the links, the music knowledge that I get from these artists. I mean, these are artists now, Endakula Zikon and this Mamela. But still, there's always that one thing, when I'm listening about a certain artist that I thought I knew about, but how you come across, how you deliver, it's magical. How does that happen? Do you compile your own?
Firstly, thank you. Firstly, thank you very much that you appreciate how this content is delivered and the passion with which it is articulated. But let me go back to your initial question. It's quite simple, and I think you know the answer. I do compile. I have the privilege to compile my own music, and I'll tell you why. When I was asked to come back, and that's what they proposed, this specialist show. I said, let's understand a specialist, because you see, it's a theater specialist. A specialist doctor on the show. Let's all understand what that entails. That I'm on the same page. We are on the same page. Specialist means I bring what I've become synonymous with over the years in terms of the music genre, soul and R&B, and only I can put it together. Because Anza when the specialist, but he compiles it and then start specialized. So Savannah from back then. So indeed, I have the privilege. I compile my own music. The research continues, but like I said earlier, the research is there. But I glance at it once. Sometimes the song comes in. It's information collected over years, and it just comes. This time it takes a different direction. It triggers another thing, and then it comes across. It's not read. It's internalized.
Don't read it. Internalize it. Don't
internalize it and
internalize
and retell it. They want to work in the masterclass
in your own way. Retell it in your own way.
In your own way. But the only way you can do that is by internalizing it. Gather the information over and over. Internalize it. Retell it. Kauza ifunda. Sleeve CD on base kunobanban. Man. I can also do that.
Now, it's been quite a privilege. It's been quite an honor. And obviously, this is not the last time we end in Mogola now, because there's always so much to learn about the medium here, and there's so many things as concha, but by exchanging in conversations as a fananezi,
it reignites.
Exactly. And in this platform, who are watching, whether it's people who are on radio, I hope and they understand this medium even better now that they
You said earlier, as a parting shot, you said earlier, you are very strict when it comes to radio. Maybe people think that way.
Yeah.
If they do think that way, they are right, I am, but I'm a very nice guy. I only do it because of passion. And I'm from my producers. It takes a month or so, then you get it. Once we understand and appreciate the respect I have for this medium, and that number one person, the listener, once Savannah, there's no, the other thing I say, there's no off day. You've got a toothache,
No.
So you can't come in the studio. Uti, dipete zinyo today, I'm not, no. Don't come, because on air, nobody has ever opened the mic, although these days maybe they do, and say, I'm feeling a bit down. I'm under the weather today. Why usemoyeni? Your job is to soothe ezinhlungu zalo muntu ophethwe i-problems zakhe pha. Multitudes of people
unenhlungu zakho wena loo nto leyo.
Zakho wena uzibeke nje every link endingakhohlwa ndiphethe lazinyo ufunane estudio. Hambe usela i-grandpa uhlale ekhaya.
Ernest, I stand. I'm a fan. I've always been a fan, and I had to save this until the end. I wouldn't be on radio if it wasn't for people like you. I fell in love with radio around about 1990, 91, 92. It was my companion, where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. But here you guys were living your lives while doing your job, and how you did it is exactly what made me think, Owens Standard 7 at the time, and I said, I want to do what these guys are doing. And you're one of those people. You're one of those people about to go, here is a career path for me. I'm in love with this medium. You guys were there. You ignited that fire within me. So many years later, I'm still enjoying it. And this was a great moment for me. Now. And I'm happy that it's not going to be the last time that we chat. There's so much that I need to drain out of you.
Yes. No. I'm truly humbled by your appreciation of my craft and the fact that you still get inspired to this day. And it is precisely because of what you said and what I get, the feedback from the people that I serve and respect the most, the listeners, that I keep doing what I'm doing. And by all means, let's chat again. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Ernest Pillay, he's on SAFM on Sundays. Life happens. What time to what time? Is it 12 to 4?
Yeah, no, let me correct. It's The Good Life. The Good Life. Oh, that was a previous show. It's the soundtrack of your life. Now I'm calling all my previous shows the soundtrack of your life. Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 o'clock on SAFM.
SAFM. Ernest, always a pleasure. There's been a snowball on next time.
Thanks, Pastor. All the best.
Yep. Don't forget to like the page and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Ernest Pillay, Zooming into Radio with Pastor the DJ. Till next time.